We're going to jump right in today to Psalm 139, and I hope you have a Bible or maybe an app that you can open and join me in taking a brief look at the Word of God and asking God to teach us. We're slow walking right now through Psalms, one Psalm at a time. We're not going in any particular order, so if you have a suggestion for our next Psalm, feel free to email me, pastor@ebcnewington.com. I'm so thankful for the good weekend God gave us, and I'm looking forward to a new week. I hope you are as well. We have another chance this week to honor the Lord, to give the gospel to people, to be salt and light, and to walk with God through His plans and purposes for us. And I hope you will celebrate His presence with you like David is in Psalm 139. We left off in about verse 13, and David is talking about God's presence being around him and inescapable, God knowing him intimately. And by verse 13, he's turning the corner and talking about God designing him beautifully, marvelously, wonderfully. It's interesting to me to track the eyes of, or the minds of the authors of Scripture, because it's almost like David is moving his eyes from the heavens, looking up, maybe a starry night, to maybe a place where there were burial sites. This is verses 7 and 8. And thinking about life and death and the brevity of life. It's almost like he's sitting at a mountain. Maybe he's looking out over the sea, the Mediterranean Sea or the Dead Sea or some other sea or ocean, and thinking about the vastness of God's presence and how that he can never get away from God. And then he draws up close and talks about God's hand holding him, and even though he's covered in darkness, God sees like it's daytime and knows exactly where he is. And then it's almost like he moves from looking at this macro view of God, this cosmic, the stars, the sky, the heavens, the depths of the earth, the vast expanse of the waters, to really up close. And this is verse 13, 14, 15. You've possessed my reins, my innermost being, my innermost design, my control center emotionally, my mind, my heart. But there's also a physical component here, because he says, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. And he's now going to, verse 14, talk about his design, his physical, his physiology. I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So again, his mind goes from the works of God in the cosmos to the works of God in his own body. And his mind turns to the design of his organs and the inner working of all the systems of his body, to the degree that he understood them even. But his own body was a marvel to him. And he says, God, I praise you because even when I look at my own design, I see you. I see your presence and your mind and your love. And he says, I'm fearfully made. I was designed to operate in reverence towards you. And I'm wonderfully made. The detail and the design is marvelous. It's beyond comprehension. Think about it. We've spent thousands of years as human beings trying to understand the human body, trying to understand our physiology. And scientists and doctors to this day really have barely scratched the surface to how we function. It's amazing to me when I go to the doctor, even when I was fighting cancer and dealing with different challenges. Hey, let's think about COVID. I mean, even with COVID, how little do we really know, okay? And how we have barely scratched the surface of understanding these things. And it's so funny to me when I hear in the modern narrative, we should trust science. We should trust science. If there's anything that has changed, let me say it this way. I don't know of many things that have changed more dramatically in the last 6 months and more frequently in the last 6 months than science. I mean, science has changed its mind repeatedly. And I get what people are saying, follow the science, follow the science. And we want to follow facts, and the more science we understand, the more knowledge we have. Yeah, we should follow that knowledge, but we should never put our core trust in these things, because these things change. All it's going to take is another discovery or another study to find out we were wrong. Okay, So we follow God, and God trumps science because God's the designer of science. But what is science trying to do? And by the way, there is no conflict between God and science. God is the author of science. And science will never prove will never substantiate the fact that God doesn't exist, because it will only establish that he does exist. It will only further help us understand his design. And David is looking at God's design here and saying, wow, it's a marvelous design. It's a fearful and wonderful design. And he says, marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. My soul knoweth right well. Now, I don't want to dive too much into that phrase. There's a lot there. But David says, God, I'm going to praise you for who you made me to be and how you designed me. Now, there's a lot of things we can draw from this, and I think you should meditate on this throughout the day. Marvelous are thy works. God's design of me is fearful, wonderful. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm marvelously and wonderfully designed. But one of the, to me, the takeaways, the applications in this is that when I don't like myself, and I'm talking about this not in a self-esteem kind of way or in a godless kind of way, but in respect to God's design. When I am hard on me, okay, and the inner conversation of, and there are a lot of people on the planet that are always measuring themselves up to others, to the beauty of others, to the shape of others, to the size of others, to the weight of others, to the skin tone of others. When I'm comparing myself to others, and I'm not accepting who God made me to be, I'm really fighting God. He's my designer. And you know what, friends? God doesn't design junk. God designed you. So your height, your shape, your skin color, your bodily function and design is the product of a masterful, wonderful creator. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So stop denigrating yourself. Stop looking in the mirror and wishing you were somebody else, or that you looked like somebody else, or that you were a different color or a different shape or a different size, or you had a different look. Stop chasing everybody else's fake facade. Social media and branding and marketing and Hollywood's model is so destructive. The lies of Hollywood that you have to look this way. Hey, those people in those images don't even look that way, okay? We construct a fake look, Hollywood does, and then propagates it, and then we all try to measure up to it, and it's just a ridiculous thing. Don't argue with God about who he designed you to be. Find the place that David has here. Thank God for your design. Thank God for your height. Thank God for your size, for your shape. Thank God for your gender. Thank God for your skin color. Thank God for the diversity that he made and called it you, okay? And accept who he made you to be and live out who he made you to be. The whole core, the whole root of the race narrative today, first of all, it is secular, it's evolutionistic, it is Marxist, it is divisive, it's destructive, it is unjust, it is racial in the extreme, okay? And it is creating a worse kind of racism. It's saying you can never be happy with who you are until everybody else on the planet has you've been liberated from all of their injustice. Well, friend, that's just never going to happen, okay? I was thinking through this past week the injustices that have happened in my life, and there haven't been an enormous number of them, but there have been plenty of them, okay? I was thinking of times that I was treated unjustly by police officers, by neighbors, by coworkers, by former friends, by bullies, by people in school who were unjust and falsely accusing. I was thinking of lots of different times in my life that injustice has found its way into my circumstances. Some of them were pretty egregious, and others of them were pretty flimsy. Okay, but injustice is painful, but it's just a part of a broken, fallen world, and the only answer for it is the gospel. And the only answer for it for you, if you've trusted Christ in the gospel, is to reject the modern narrative and to come back to the biblical narrative that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that God's works in designing you were marvelous. And by the way, when you understand the biblical worldview and the gospel worldview, then you also understand that verse is true about everybody else. And that means you treat everybody with respect and reverence and an awe, reverence, fearfully. And when I understand that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, then I also understand that so are you. And that way I will treat you with the reverence, the fearful wonder, and marvelous beauty that God calls you. And I will cherish you as the design, the created being of God. Okay? And that's the biblical worldview. The secular worldview breaks everybody into categories, breaks everybody into oppressors and oppressed, and then tells the oppressed the only way to find justice is to become oppressors and to oppress the oppressors. But that is not the model that the gospel gives us. So we have to reject the modern narratives that are being screamed into our hearts and minds right now. We have to embrace the biblical narrative. First of all, for myself, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and marvelous are thy works. You know, for you, it might not be height or weight or gender or skin color or the way you look. It might be age. It might be the phase of life or season of life. I don't know where you are, but it might be this moment of saying, you know what, I am where God's placed me. And so I'm going to accept where God has me, who God's designed me to be, who He's called me to be. I'm going to lay down my resistance to that and my negative dialogue or my negative monologue that's in my head or my imagination. And I'm going to look in the mirror and thank God for making me, designing me, who He made me to be. I'm going to thank God for walking with me through this life, to this age, to this stage, to this season. And I'm going to walk forward with Him in reverence and wonder that marvelous are His works to me. What a powerful verse to meditate on today.